You were about to start. Not a big thing, just something small you said mattered. You even set it up right, cleared space, opened what you needed, sat there for a second like this time would be different. And then it happened, not loudly, just a thought. You don't feel like it right now. You'll do it later. Just 5 minutes first. Nothing aggressive, nothing that felt like sabotage, just familiar, comfortable, easy to agree with. So you listened, you stood up, or you picked up your phone, or you shifted your attention just enough to step away from the thing you said you'd do. And just like that, the moment passed. No drama, no consequence you could feel immediately, just another quiet decision. But something happened in that moment, something you keep missing. This isn't about what you did, it's about which version of you just won. There are two versions of you. Not the version you show people, not the version you imagine becoming. The two that are actually operating right now. One of them is clear. It doesn't need hype. It doesn't need motivation. It sees things directly. It knows what matters. It doesn't overthink. It moves, not emotionally, not dramatically, just consistently. The other version is just as present, but it speaks differently. It doesn't say stop. It says not yet. It doesn't say quit. It says later. It doesn't fight you. It redirects you softly, reasonably, and that's why it wins, because it doesn't feel like resistance. It feels like you. That's the part most people don't see. You think you're thinking. You think those thoughts are yours, but they're not new. They're rehearsed. Patterns. Lines you've repeated so many times they now sound natural, automatic, true. You work better under pressure. You'll get to it. You just need to feel right first. You didn't come up with those in the moment. You've practiced them over and over, and now they show up on cue, exactly when you need them to justify the easier option. You're not confused. You're divided. And the version of you that wins most often becomes the one you rely on. You feel it most when you're alone. No one watching, no expectations. Just you and the moment. You said you'd train. You even believed it earlier. Now it's time and the thought shows up. You're tired. It feels real, valid, true enough to follow. The other voice is quieter. Just start. But it doesn't argue and it doesn't push. It just sits there. And whichever one you follow gets stronger, not in theory, in practice. Now shift it. You're around people, talking, moving, being seen. You speak differently here, more certain, more aligned. You say things that sound like the version of you that moves. And in that moment, it feels real, because that version is real. But later, when you're alone again, that same thing you spoke about, you don't act on it, and you notice, not loudly, just enough to feel it, the gap between what you say and what you repeat. That gap doesn't break you. It trains you. Look at your work. There's always something you know matters, not 10 things. One, it requires focus, presence, effort, so you sit down, open everything. And instead of starting, you drift. You check something first, then something else. Then you reorganize, then you delay just enough to make it feel like progress. But you didn't touch the real thing. And that's where the decision was, not in your schedule, in that moment where one thought led you away and you followed it. And then there's the part no one sees, the private promises, the ones you mean when you say them. I'm done with this. I'm changing this. This time is different. You believe it when you say it because the version of you saying it is real. But when the moment returns, so do the same thoughts, the same rehearsed lines. And without realizing it, you follow the same script. Again, you don't rise to your goals, you default to your patterns. And your patterns are built from repetition, not intention. Your thoughts are not guiding you, they're reflecting what you've practiced. Every time you avoid something, you reinforce that pathway. Every time you delay, you strengthen that response. Every time you justify it, you make it easier next time. And then you expect a different version of yourself to show up when it matters. It won't. Because under pressure, You don't become better. You become automatic. That's why this feels stuck. Not because you don't know what to do, because you've trained yourself to do something else. And now it happens without effort, without resistance, without awareness. That's the dangerous part. Not the action, the familiarity. So the shift isn't about thinking better thoughts. It's about breaking the ones you keep rehearsing in real time. The moment the thought shows up, later, you see it, not as truth, as pattern. That changes everything. Because once you see it, you have a choice. Follow it or interrupt it. You remove negotiation windows. You don't sit in the thought. You don't debate it. Because the longer you stay there, the more likely you are to follow the familiar path. You move faster than the pattern, not emotionally, decisively. You decide before the moment arrives, not when you're tired, not when you're distracted, before. You define what happens, then you execute it. Because in the moment, the rehearsed version of you is stronger. Unless you've already decided, you build proof daily. Not big wins, not dramatic changes, small moments, where the thought shows up and you don't follow it. That's it. That's how you retrain identity. Not by thinking differently, by acting differently when it matters. You make discomfort familiar. Right now, your thoughts are protecting you from it. That's their job. But once you step into it enough times, it stops feeling like a threat. It becomes normal. And when it's normal, the thought loses power. You correct immediately. You don't wait. You don't restart next week. You don't reset tomorrow. You break the pattern the same day. Because patterns grow fast. But they break fast too, if you interrupt them early. This isn't about control. It's about awareness. Because you've been following thoughts that feel like you, but aren't. They're just repeated, practiced, reinforced. So pause right now. Which version of you has been winning this week? Not what you planned, what actually happened. Where are you pretending you don't have a choice? Where are you saying, I'll do it later? Knowing exactly what that leads to. And what pattern keeps repeating that you refuse to name clearly? Sit with that. Don't move past it, because that's where the shift starts. Not in action, in recognition. You're not stuck, you're trained. And what you've trained, you can retrain. But not by waiting, not by thinking, by interrupting. The next moment will come. Soon, it always does. Small, quiet, familiar. The same thought will show up, the same option, the same pattern. And this time, you'll see it. Not as truth, as repetition. And in that second, you decide. Because this was never about your goals. It was about which version of you keep reinforcing. And from this point forward, you're not following every thought that shows up. You're choosing which ones get to lead. You don't need a better plan. You need to decide which version of you is in charge.